Hidetaka Miyazaki has never made it a secret that Kentaro Miura's manga of Berserk has been a massive inspiration to him in his games. FromSoft fans are always on the lookout for Berserk references as soon as a new trailer drops, but among all the superficial comparisons, it's easy to overlook the deeper themes that have taken root in the Soulsborne games at a fundamental level. Today I hope to shed a light on this often overlooked inspiration Berserk has had, and show that it is all more than just a reference. The core for both Berserk and the FromSoftware games are essentially the same: perseverance through adversity. The main character of Berserk, Guts, has been fighting an uphill battle since the day he was born, being betrayed by most of his key connections growing up, uprooting his life. Someone who no one would blame for giving up, and yet he struggles. The struggler being a moniker given to him for defying death at every turn. Every modern FromSoftware game has a chosen one character that more often than not has to fight against unrealistic odds. Demons, dragons, war legends, forces from outer space, and sometimes literal gods. And this will result in many deaths, over and over and over. No doubt more painful every time, not less. And yet we struggle. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I'm likely not the first person to point this out, but I do also want to point out the differences in how these mediums go about portraying this theme. After all, Guts presumably only has one life and can't respawn like we can in Souls games. I'm going to describe a short segment of an early-ish chapter of Berserk, but avoid the major plot points and keeping it vague. As a kid, Guts learned to fight with a sword due to being brought up by mercenaries. However, he is betrayed by a particular member of his gang, and resulted in him being persecuted by his mercenary group. He narrowly escapes his pursuit, but is shot in the shoulder and left to bleed out with a few broken bones. He gets up and starts walking, but immediately questions why. The only life he has ever known is already over. At that moment, he's snuck up by a pack of hungry wolves, and simply accepts it's the end. But in a moment of reflex, he stabs the wolf lunging at him. When the rest of the wolves attack, he starts actively mowing them down in self-defense. Until the pack understands their situation and leave. Guts then passes out. He was only 9 years old at the time. He never explicitly thinks this in his inner dialogue, but this panel should say it all. Why did I fight back? I have nothing to live for anymore, so why? He spends the rest of the series answering this question. Why do I fight? Sometimes he thinks he's found the answer. Sometimes he realizes he threw away something beloved to him in seeking this answer. And sometimes the reason is forced on him by external forces. He will meet many more hardships that would break a normal person, even in this harsh medieval-inspired land. And honestly, it does break Guts in a way. He ends up doing things he would regret for the rest of his life. And yet he struggles. To fix what he can, to help those he loves, to truly understand what drives him to keep fighting. You can point to any of the FromSoftware games, and you'll find a similar experience to the others, but let's use the most recent game as an example. In Elden Ring, you are a tarnish of no renown, revived and forced to fix the problems created by your predecessors and rulers of this land. This journey is not lacking in trials and tribulations, but you are unremarkable in the eyes of the ones who set you on this path, who are more so relying on the sheer number of tarnish being set on this quest, and figure eventually one of you will become Elden Lord and restore the status quo. You are faced against the stuff of legends, beings who were born of gods and have control over the stars, or even our prospects to ascend to godhood themselves. You will die, over and over and over again, and yet we struggle, whether to become Elden Lord, bring all life to one being, or beginning a new age. The hardships we endured on the journey to get there made us stronger, and made it all the more satisfying when succeeding. And even though we lost parts of us along the way, we persevered through the adversity. To this end, it's possible the Soulsborne games are the games that best carry the spirit of Berserk out of any other. I say that having not played any of the adapted Berserk games, but from my understanding some of them are okay games, but none are revered as the holy grail of Berserk adaptations. Hell, even some of the animated material isn't considered that worthy, but that's a discussion for another day. It is worth noting that Berserk has not ended yet, so we don't have a conclusion to Guts' story. But even though I fully expect the ending to tear our hearts into little pieces, anyone who has followed the story so far knows it won't prove to be meaningless. Whether Guts lives or dies, it won't matter. He died doing what he wanted, no matter what. I bet he was happy. It's easy to forget, and perhaps most people who haven't explored Berserk don't even know this. But behind all the darkness, there is an underlying message of hope. You can easily say the same of the Souls games, The common narrative spoken through the media is all about the difficulty, overhyping it as something that's purposely out to beat you down. But it's clearly not the point, as per this interview after Demons was released all the way back in 2009. Having the game be difficult was never the goal. What we set out to do was strictly to provide a sense of accomplishment. We understood that difficulty is just one way to offer an intense sense of accomplishment through forming strategies, overcoming obstacles, and discovering new things. Our goal of a sense of accomplishment was the basis of the game since the early stages of development, and we never strayed from that. These mediums aren't nihilistic. Despite the real hardship these stories represent and aren't shy of depicting, they encourage people to push on. Being beaten down and giving up is a very real part of life, but so is picking yourself back up and fighting another day. While this type of message delivery isn't for everyone, it's no wonder that there's countless people whose lives have been changed, and even saved by this series, including my own.
However ruined this world has become, however mired in torment and despair, life endures. There is beauty in that, is there not?
Thank you for listening for my little ramble on these beloved franchises. The day that this video is planned to release should see the return of the manga, and many believe this will be the introduction to the final arc of the story. And on the same day, this mysterious countdown should reach 0. So we will find out what that means. If you have not consumed Berserk yet, I hope that this video will sell you on it. It's one of the greatest stories of our generation and you'd be starting at a great time. Anyway, I make Soulsborne content, primarily Elden Ring and Demon Souls, but don't mind touching some of the other games as well. I certainly would love to introduce more Berserk to my channel as well. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing. You can also become a channel member to support me monetarily and help keep these videos going. That will be all. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again.